Welcome to the dev blog on Global Gambit. This is a remake of my first video, so hopefully it's a little easier to start you off and inspire you to make your own grand strategy game. For those that are following from video 8, don't worry, I'll show you a little bit of where I am and give you a bit of a hint as where video 9 is going to be. So this is currently where I am. Notice the sea is now blue, and notice that we have nations set up and we've got independent nations as well. So for those that are joining us for the first time, you can see that we've got it so nations own certain regions. We can control tanks and we can take regions. There's no defensive armies at this stage, but we're nowhere near finished. But you can kind of get an idea of where you can get up to by just following these dev blogs. So that includes camera controls and stuff. So how do you make your own grand strategy game? So first of all, you're going to need a game engine. I'm using Godot, which works on quite a few different platforms, and you can see that other people use the engine to make their own games. All you need to do is click download and the engine is yours. You don't need to pay for it. Although it would be nice if you did do a little bit of a donation for them, because it is open source. Anyway, so you download it and you just unzip it. It pretty much works straight out of the box. So as you can see, I've already got my previous versions already set up, but if you are making your own, you want to click on create, give it an appropriate name. So for the purpose of today's video, we're just going to call it example 1, and then just click create. And this is what Godot looks like when you make it for the first time. Okay, so you'll want to know what type of game you're trying to make. So for the purpose of this one, we're going to make it 2D, and we're going to set up our first node and attach a sprite 2D to it. The 2D sprite is basically where our map's going to be, so we're going to need to rename that so we know what it's going to store, which will be map. And we're going to rename our node 2D to straight up to just main. Now, because we don't have a texture just yet, we can't add anything, so that's going to be our next job. We're going to now need to make a world map. So I'm using Photoshop, but feel free to use a photo editor or image maker of your choice, and I'm setting the pixels by 1080 by 1920. It's basically what full HD is. If you want to, you can make it 4K or whatever. So we're just going to make a really simple map here. So I'm just going to have 4 regions. I'm going to set 4 different colors, and I'm just going to fill it in with just some paint. So top left corner, going to make it nice and red. Then I'm going to make another region. Now, in case you're wondering what tools I'm using in Photoshop, this is the polygon lasso tool, which basically just means I can just draw a simple shape, and then I can just fill in with the paint bucket tool. So it's really important these regions have different colors, because it's telling the computer that basically the colors are a way of saying this is a different region. Okay, so this could be my 3rd region. So let's go with a nice shade of green. And then for my 4th region, once again, I'm just doing the same thing over and over and over again. Just setting up a shape that's going to represent each region. Now, if you were doing this on yourself, you probably want to spend a bit more time doing this, making your regions look really nice, making it look like a proper map. But for me, and this very simple tutorial, that pretty much just sums it up. So we've got 4 different colors, 4 different areas. There's our map. And just to make it obvious, I've just made the outside bit black. You don't really need to do that, but it makes it look a bit more obvious when you're in Godot. So make sure you save the picture into your Godot area. So there you go. You'll notice that there's a pictures folder, but Godot won't have that yet. You'll need to make that yourself. So just make sure the picture is saved to the Godot root drive, which is what I'm doing right now. And you'll probably want to make a construction image file anyway for later. Most of these images you'll probably want to store as just PNGs. Okay, next up, we're going to need to tell Godot what these colors mean. So we're going to create something called a JSON file, or JavaScript Object Notation. And you can make this in Notepad, so you don't need to buy anything for this. So you can see I'm basically starting to make one right here. So all we're going to do is we're going to store the color followed by what the region is going to be called. So I'm using the eyedropper tool to find out what the exact color is. So there you go, that's the hex color. I'm going to type the hex color here. I'm going to separate with a colon and then type what I want, what text I want to represent when I click on that color. And I'm going to do this for every single region on my map. So if you've got 50 regions, then you'll need to do this 50 times. If you've only done it 4 times, well, if you only got 4 regions, you're only going to have to do it 4 times. So Godot knows when the file finishes, we use the curly brackets at the top and at the bottom to basically just say where the important bits of the text are kept. Okay, so once you've got all your regions and colors sorted, what you're going to need to do is make sure it's saved in the correct place, and then instead of setting it to text document.txt, set it to all files, and then at the end of your file name, you're going to put .json. And if you save it like that, you have now got your JSON file. And in Godot, it will show up as JSON. So what I'm going to do now is create a couple of folders, pictures and scripts. That's how you do it, and then we're just going to put both those files inside of it. So I'm just going to drag maps into pictures and drag regions into scripts. You don't need to do that, that just tidies it up, because you'll find you will have lots of files towards the end of your product. So clicking on the sprite 2D node, you can then change the texture to your picture, and you can have a look at the JSON file by just clicking on the JSON file. Right. Now I need to make a couple of changes here. We're going to put a hashtag in front of our colors and speech marks around the colors itself. And to separate each region, we're also going to add a little comma, something I forgot to do when I was doing this in the notepad. If you know about this in advance, you don't need to worry about this stage as long as you do it at some point. But when you're doing it in Godot, it becomes a little bit easier to see because it does color code. So if you've done it correctly, it will show up as that kind of orange yellowy color. Now, when we click on something, we want it to be obvious that we've clicked on a region. So we're just going to make a new folder called region highlights. And what we're going to do now is we need a copy of each region as it's a different color. So when you click it, it changes color. So load up the map. Use the magic eraser tool to delete every single region in the background. Paint over the region in white or whatever color you want, and then just save that as its own file inside our region highlights, and then just give it a name. So that's what I've done for London. Don't save the overall map. You'll need to close it and reopen it. If you save it, you'll turn your map into just a white region. But you'll need to then repeat the whole process for all the regions you got. So delete, 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 paint over, save. Okay, so that's Berlin. And then finally, we're going to do Paris. Once again, you don't need to use these names. You don't even need to have your map look like a real world. You can completely make up your regions. You don't need those names at all. You can go hog wild with this. Okay, with all the regions, just make sure they are showing up in Godot. So there you go, I've got my 4 regions, and we've basically got everything we need. So next up should be the coding part. So to make the code, we're going to right click the main and we're going to attach a script. And then we're just going to stick to a regular bit of main. Okay, so this is the first part of our code. We're going to need to declare some variables. One that's going to store all of the colors to regions, that's going to store all the region masks, one that's going to store the highlight sprites and stuff. Now, when the main starts, function ready is basically all the code we want to happen at the beginning. So we've got 2 functions there, load region data, which is going to load the data, and then load the highlight regions. Now, in our first function, load region data, you don't need to type the location. You can just drag it from the file system straight over there, and it'll copy the entire file name for you. And what this is doing is it's going into the regions JSON, it's checking the text file, it's making a dictionary of all the regions, and it's just going to check if the regions can be loaded. Now in our load region mask, this is the bit that's going to do the highlighting. Once again, I've just dragged it from the file system directly onto the function itself, and it's basically just going to load all of the region textures that's going to show up when you click on a thing. Now our unhandled input is a function that's going to do most of our controls. So for the moment, we're using the left mouse button, and when you click on something, what's happening is it's checking the positions of the regions. And then in our function show highlight, what it's doing is setting the positions of all those highlights, making sure it's going on top of the regions itself. And at the bottom of that function, we're going to have this modulate one as well. So it does a little bit of a fade, so it doesn't look so sudden. It's going to just fade in and fade out. So here's the fade out highlight in a bit more detail. So we've got the highlight old sprite texture, which will represent the highlight sprite texture, and it's going to set the position, center, scaling, and rotations. And this is all the code all together. So this is basically all the code I did in the first video, but just put together, and with all the other bits and bobs that you needed to get to the end of the first video. So if we run it, this is what we got. So if you click on a region, it now goes to that color. It doesn't have to be white. If you set the highlight to a different color, then it will show a different color. Now, if you do have an error, it could be that the JSON file doesn't match the color code on the texture itself. So if you were to click on it and it says unknown color, it means the JSON file and the texture aren't the same color. So just double check that the hex color matches the one on the texture. And there's 2 ways of fixing it. You either fix the map, or you just update the JSON file with the correct color code. If you change the color code like I just did there, it will then work. Okay, so that takes us to where we were at the end of the first video. So if you then were to develop a better texture, like a world map, you can see basically this is what I've done here. So there's my giant world map, not 4 regions, but over 200, and each region's got its own individual color. You can see this is what the JSON file looked like originally when it was a text file, but then was resaved as a JSON file. So each unique color was given a region name, and so that tells Godot what part of the map texture will happen when you click on that region. And as you can see here, this is basically all of the code that you're going to see from earlier in the video. The only real difference between this build, which was very, very early, and the build that you'll see in this video is that there's 2 extra nodes in this very, very old version that says map, click, area, and collision shape 2D. You don't need to worry about those 2 nodes. That was something I was going to try and link into the second video, but I just didn't end up using that version, so feel free to ignore those 2 extra nodes. But other than that, you can see that the code here pretty much matches exactly what we've been showing you. And for the region highlights of this version, you can see that every region on this world has its own image mask, so there's like 200 PNGs I had to create. So if we look at it as what you should have at the end of your first video, so you run it, and this is my world map. I can click on the region and it lights up. Now, if you haven't used white as a color, you can see when I click on Paris, it goes bright green. If I click on other regions and it's still the same color, while it will say clicked in the output box, it won't do anything else. So you do need those region masks for it to show like it's highlighting. Right, anyway, so that's my redo of the first video. I hope that's a lot better and gives you a better starting point to making your own grand strategy game. Feel free to keep watching the other videos, and I will get video 9 up soon. Anyway, like and subscribe if you think it was helpful, and I'll see you next time.